Something wonderful is happening to me right now. Something wonderful is happening to me right now. I accept things the way they are. I accept things the way they are not. Something wonderful is happening to me right now. I love wasting. I love wasting. I can breathe. I reap abundantly. I already have everything I need. Wonderful is happening to me right now. Don't you feel it? Something wonderful is happening to me right now. Oh yeah, I accept things the way they are. I will. I accept things the way they are not. Something wonderful is happening to me right now.
Good morning. Welcome to the center. Would you like a program?
Good morning. Welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the spiritual center of the world.
Good morning to you. I invite you to close your eyes and to make yourself comfortable in your chair. Take a deep breath in and release that breath. And pay attention to it as you inhale and exhale. Take another deep breath and release it. Now as you breathe in this time, notice the passage, the effect of the air as you inhale it. Notice it moving into your nostrils and moving out into your body. Notice that your chest inhales that your chest inflates when you inhale, and that your shoulders rise. As you release the breath, notice that your chest deflates and your shoulders fall. Now just take a couple of deep breaths and notice this action that your body takes as you begin to make that connection with the divine. Breath moving in, breath moving out. Relaxation and stillness sitting in. Continue breathing deeply and slowly and noticing this response. Not only do you notice that your chest and your shoulders relaxing, you will find that with each breath in and each breath out, this releasing and relaxing is moving throughout your body. Now gently inhale and exhale deeply. And this time allow your entire upper torso to release and to relax. Inhale again and exhale, and release any tension in your abdomen, your lower back, your buttocks. On this next inhale and exhale, let go of any tension you may feel in your legs, from your thighs to your knees, even down to your toes. Let go. Relax. Breathe in and out again. And allow all that you are, your whole entire being, move into this peaceful, loving state of relaxation. Now as you continue to breathe, breathe a smile into your heart space. And once you're aware of that smile in your heart space, allow the smile to move to your face. Notice how uplifted you feel when you allow this. God, His love is forever near, always closer than your very breath. God, His support will never abandon you. Now silently affirm these next statements with me. I am receptive to God's love, loving presence. I allow love to lead, guide, and direct me. I am aware of its unending support. I am at peace. Silently rest in these thoughts now. It is time for you to return to the sacred space. Breathe deeply. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes.
I ask each of you to just take in a God-loving breath. This is a magical, mystical day as each of us share our love to the ones that are here in this sanctuary and wherever we go. God is love and light and peace. God is everywhere present. God is in and through everything. And I know that everything and every feeling and every thought that each of us is for the highest and best good of ourselves individually and for all of the people that we come in contact with. And I declare right here, right now, as each of us show even more love to our fellow human beings and to our animals, the love that is sent throughout the world, all of the different fires and floods that are taking place, that our heartfelt prayers are going out to each and every person and every animal. And I am so grateful and so blessed and so thankful to be a part of this loving community. And I'm thankful for our Reverends Stacy and Cheryl and Dan, and the love that they exude, and their visions on how each and every one of us can live even a better life, and how each of us can step up to more of what and who we are. I am grateful for the congregants, for Julius, for all of the pictures and the CDs and the DVDs and all of his attributes that he shares so lovingly with each and every one of us. Grateful for the people that do this sound, and for the volunteers, and for the ministry of prayer. The ministry of prayer is what we hold up for our reverends. We're our backup. We are the backup for the reverends. I am so blessed and so thankful and so grateful to be here today in this wondrous space. And I ask, as I release my word to the law, knowing that everything is in divine right action. And please join me in saying, and so it is.
So the title of my talk is Self-Absorbed. It's all about me. Imagine that my two colleagues gave me this topic. And so I began to go down that path. I began to look at the times that we live in, where we sort of live in a very self-absorbed society. And, I look at how we've mixed up our priorities, sort of what we put our energy and our emphasis on versus what's really important in life. And as I started to think about all that and prayed and meditated about it, it became very clear to me that the divine had something else that it wanted to express in this talk. So I made myself open to that, and I said, okay, well, what are we going to talk about? And this is what came through. Your thinking, what you think about, how you process and how you react to what's happening in the world, that in fact is an area where you must become self-absorbed. In other words, your thinking is the one thing that you must be doing independent of how or what the world is thinking. Now, I was led to an example in Dr. Eric Butterworth's book, Spiritual Economics. And he says this: the starting point in realizing prosperity is to accept responsibility for your own thoughts, thus taking charge of your life. You are not responsible for what is said in the Wall Street Journal or what comes out of Washington in the form of economic indicators. But you are very much responsible for what you think about these things. You cannot afford to let the so-called experts decide how you are going to think and feel. For how you think and feel about the economy in general and your financial affairs in particular will unvaryingly determine what you experience. If you are serious about the programs suggested by this book, you will want to make a commitment to keep yourself and get yourself in the positive stream of life. Refuse to indulge in casual conversation about the bad economy, the high cost of living, or about anything you really do not want to say yes to. Eliminate such thoughts as I can't, I'm afraid, and there's not enough from your consciousness. Talk only about the things that you want to see live and grow in your life. Keep your thoughts centered in the idea of abundancy, sufficiency, and well-being. You must become self-absorbed in your own thinking. So, I was contemplating all of this. And I thought, in this exquisite mind that we have, we put thoughts together and they become beliefs. And this is what the law uses to create our experience. And so I sat down and I began to make a list of all the things in the physical world that we are actually responsible for creating. I started to look at all of the areas of life, which, regardless of what we want to believe, we create. So on the list, there's relationships. On the list, there's money. On the list, there is career and work. On the list, there's this level of success that I create. And out of nowhere, as I'm writing, this comes up. How we age. How long we live. And I thought, that's interesting. And I just kept writing my list. And the intelligence within me, the one divine mind said, stop. I want you to sit with this for a while. You create your physical experience. So one of the major things on your list should be how we age, how long we live. So I said to the divine, this is not something, for obvious reasons, in the past that we spoke much of. And the divine said back to me, it is now honorable and respectful to begin to speak about this here again. I said, all right. So the first place that I was led to, one of my favorite books is the Holy Bible. And I was led to the Old Testament, wherein there are accounts of people that lived extraordinary long lives. Adam lived 930 years. I mean, no wonder he ate the apple. He was like, been with Eve for 900 years. I'll take the apple. Get me the hell out of here. No, he didn't. So it's not, that's implied in the Bible. Jared lived 962 years. Jared's grandson, Methuselah, lived to be the longest recorded being on the planet, 969 years. Now, what's interesting when you do your research is that you find that about that time, there was a great flood. The earth was covered with water. And by the way, the great flood, the great deluge, is also recorded in many, many historical records of other religions, of peoples, societies, and civilizations. But something very interesting happened after the Great Flood. Lifespans before the Great Deluge obviously were extraordinarily long. After the flood, the lifespans dropped dramatically. The average lifespan after the flood was on average 317 years, and that continued on for 10 generations. And what we know now is that the average lifespan today, when you look worldwide, is 79 years old. Now, there's great debate around the recording of these long lifespans in the Bible. But there is not just a camp, but a very large camp of people that believe and hold to be true that those lifespans are accurately recorded. And they use such scientific tools as nature's exponential decay rate and the coefficient of determination to prove out that these ages actually existed. So the million-dollar question becomes, why is the average lifespan 79 years when we know that human beings lived much longer than that previously? Something to think about. Now switch gears with me. Because now we're going to move from thousands of years ago in the Old Testament to the most cutting edge medical information and research that we have about lifespans today. So just recently, there were a trio of New York researchers from the Albert Einstein University, and they recently claimed that human beings have already lived as long as they possibly could. They surmised that the age of 115 years is the maximum age limit for a human being. Now, what's interesting, there was a group of Canadian researchers who were doing research in lifespans in longevity, and almost immediately came forward and said, we will challenge your assertion. Because we have spent a great deal of time looking at records, solid records of birth certificates and death certificates, hospital records, and what we believe is that it is possible that human existence may be boundless. And I quote, "It does not mean that we know there is no limit, but because we can detect no limit, it is possible that indeed there is no limit." This comes from McGill University biologist Siegfried Hakimi, and he says, average human lifespan keeps increasing dramatically, and maximum human lifespan seems to follow. I see no statistical or demonstrated biological reason how we would know that this must stop. So the million-dollar question is, why is the average lifespan of a human being 79 years old when research is proving that lifespans are continuing to grow? Let's look at this from another angle. What do we know about the human body? Now, unfortunately for you, I've had a couple of Sundays off to do research. And I love quoting things about the human body, but in my research, we are learning things about the capability of the human body that we never knew before. So recently, what we've determined is that there are about 7 octillion atoms in the human body. That is a 7 × followed by 27 zeros. And all of these atoms come together and are knitted together to hold you in place. There are 37 trillion cells in your body, much more than was previously estimated. There are 1 trillion nerves powering your memory. Right now you have 7 active enzymes, 700 active enzymes working in the body as you sit there, not even knowing. I thought this was interesting. There's 100,000 chemical reactions that happen in our brain every second. Your brain right now is processing millions of bits of data that you don't even recognize. We inhale and exhale about 30,000 times a day. Now, how strong is the human body? The femur bone can withstand the weight of 16,000 people standing on it all at one time. Now, we've heard that the entire body replaces itself every 7 to 15 years. Now, I've even quoted that in a previous sermon right from this pulpit. And what I learned is that is true, almost. So, what we know now is most cells replace themselves in the body at different rates. Now, the abdominal area, the stomach, we produce an acid that can dissolve metal. So there's a lot that goes on in the abdominal area and the intestinal area. And so the body is replacing some of those cells every hour. Some of them every couple of days. We replace our taste buds every 10 days. Your outer layer of your skin is shed every 2 to 4 weeks. The body replaces every red blood cell every 4 months. Now, I thought this was interesting. All the cells in the bones replace themselves, but it's a much slower process. The body replaces about 10% of the cells in your bones every year. Now, listen to this sentence. I just think this is so amazing. Ready?
Yeah.
50,000 cells were replaced in your body in the time that I read this sentence. All the while, you have no idea this is going on. You're just sitting there going, he is so handsome. And we replace 50,000 cells every second. Now here's where I am the myth. Because what we've discovered is that there are some cells in the body. There are some cells in the inner eye. There are some cells in the muscles of the heart. And there are some neurons in the brain that literally stay with you your whole life. They never replace themselves. However, when you read researchers and medical scientists smirk and they say, don't worry, give us a little more time. We'll figure out how to help the body replace those cells. But for the most part, this machine called the human body, I mean, it is eating, it's assimilating, it's digesting, it's eliminating, it's breathing, it's moving, it's healing, it's rejuvenating, it's recreating, and it's rebuilding itself. Every second of every day. So the $1 million question is this. Why is the average human lifespan 79 years when we know this is going on in the body? Let's explore this yet from another angle. I shouldn't have this much time on my hands. Christian Sommer, he was a young German marine biology student, and he was conducting some research in the waters off of the cliffs of Portofino. Now, if I could go to school and do my research in the waters off the cliffs of Portofino, I would give this gig up. Not that you're not fabulous, okay? But there's no waters to swim in. He discovered a very unusual jellyfish, and he took it back to his laboratory, and he watched it for several days, and what he noticed is it was behaving in a very peculiar manner. Plainly speaking, it just refused to die. And it actually appeared to age in reverse. It actually was growing younger and younger and younger until it reached its earliest stage of development. And when it reached that stage, it began living its life anew. Now this is amazing. So, several biologists from Genoa jumped in, they began to study the species, and they discovered that at any stage in development, this jellyfish, it's got its little tentacles, I can't remember what they call them, but it literally absorbs them and it becomes a polyp, which is this earliest stage of its life, and it begins the whole process over again. And what's even more fascinating when you look at it a little closer, what they discovered, it has the ability to transform cells from being one thing to another. Now that is amazing. So, this group of scientists say this: in doing so, thus escaping death and achieving potential immortality, this finding appeared to debunk the most fundamental law of the natural world. You are born and then you die. Now, so the million-dollar question is this. We know that there is one infinite divine mind. And we know that this information about this jellyfish is in this mind. We know that the capability of reversing age resides in this one infinite mind. Now, what's even more amazing is that we know that our mind is a point of consciousness in the one divine mind. In other words, our mind is part of this one infinite divine mind. Which means then that in our mind we know this information. That the capacity to do this resides in our mind. So why is the average lifespan 79 years? All right, now you've been very good researchers because you've looked at historical records. You've looked at the latest medical research. You've marveled at the new things that we're finding out about the human body. You've looked at other life forms. One could say that we have thoroughly explored the physical. And yet, we remain puzzled, and we are unable to answer our million-dollar question. So as good researchers, we must conclude that we need to look elsewhere for our answer. And that perhaps it's time to turn from the physical and begin to explore the metaphysical. That perhaps the answers that we're looking for are in our very own teaching. It is one of the newest sciences, this science of the mind. And perhaps, again, what we're looking for may reside in this very book. So let us turn to the science of mind. What does Dr. Holmes say about this idea of aging and seemingly growing old? Page 59. Should someone come to you with the question, am I too old to find my rightful place? What are you as a practitioner to reply? You explain that there is no recognition of age in the truth, that everyone has his or her place in truth, and that God does not withdraw itself from us at a certain age. For God is omnipresence. In this presence, every being is fully provided for at every age. Another reading from the Science of Mind. Page 180. The greatest good that can come to anyone is the forming within him or her of an absolute certainty of his or her relationship to the universe, forever removing the sense of heaven as being outside of them. Such an understanding teaches us that there can never come a time where we will stop progressing, that age is an illusion, that limitation is a mistake, that unhappiness is ignorance. Interesting to contemplate. And then the final reading, the race suggestion, or the collective consciousness, carries a strong belief about the unpleasant conditions which may present themselves as one, quote, grows old. Among these is a physical condition termed hardening of the arteries, which hinders the free flow of blood to the brain. A treatment must be so formulated as to recognize that there is but one mind. Consequently, no thought of depression, fear, or suggestion of imperfection can flow through it. Man and woman is birthless, deathless, ageless spirit. And this should be the consciousness of our work. This leaves nothing to be born, mature, decay, and die. Life cannot grow old. God in us and through us as us can only express according to its own nature, which is perfection. So if we put all of this together, by the way, this is the very cornerstone of this teaching. So if we take all of this, if we take the empirical data that we looked at earlier in this talk and we marry it with the principles of the science of mind, I believe that it challenges us to question what we have accepted as the idea of old age and of growing older as being part of this human experience. I think we need to become self-absorbed. And when I say that, I believe that we must pull ourselves away from the collective consciousness, and we need to create our own consciousness. We need to begin to think new thoughts. We need to begin speaking differently than the world is speaking about our life and our experience. And the beauty of this teaching is we say change your thinking, change your life. And you can do that anywhere. You can do that anywhere you are at any time. So I think we should start thinking differently about life right now.
Yeah.
And so, to celebrate Louise Hay's glorious transition at 90 years young, I thought that we would use some of her words to help us. Because you hear people go around in the world and they say things like, well, you know, at this age, things just start breaking down. Well, I think we should say something differently. Jim? So you need to repeat with me now. Ready? In the infinity of life where I am, all is perfect, whole, and complete. I no longer choose to believe in old limitations and lack. I now choose to begin to see myself as the universe sees me, perfect, whole, and complete. That's a very different way of thinking than the world thinks about life. You will hear people say, well, you know, this body ain't what it used to be. Can't do nearly what I used to do, you know. Maybe we should say this instead. I am grateful for my healthy body. I love life. How many times at work last week did you hear somebody say, I love life? The only person at work that said it last week was me. Now, this is one that you hear, God, I'm just tired. I'm tired all the time. That's probably old age. Well, maybe we should say something different. Repeat with me. I feel glorious, dynamic energy. I am active and alive. Well, you know, my age. You just don't have, you know, as many opportunities as you used to. Really? Because I think Dr. Holmes said, there is no point in time that the universe pulls away from you. God is omnipresent. There's as many opportunities pressing against you now as there ever have been. So instead of saying that, let's say this. I choose to make the rest of my life the best of my life. Oh, my aching body. I hurt in places I didn't even know I had. Well, maybe our message to the universe needs to be a little different. How about this? I am pain-free and totally in sync with life. That's beautiful, right? Now, and this is medical research, but what we find that accelerates the aging process is fear, is worry, is unforgiveness. And when a person has just a general lack of love in their life, we begin to see decay. And we do say, the world's a scary place. I'm concerned. I don't see love in the world anymore. Fear, worry. Maybe we need to say this instead. I am surrounded by love. All is well. According to our teaching, not my words, but our founder's words. We have the ability to make lives. We have the ability to make our lives exactly what we want them to be. But in order to do so, we have to begin thinking aright. Read this last quote with me. Life is really very simple. What we give out, we get back. Every thought we think is creating our future. I believe that if we remember that, all of this can look very different. I believe that our experience can be different than it ever was previously. If we use our powerful mind and we fill it with new and dynamic thinking, that powerful law that surrounds us has no choice. It has no choice but to move us into an experience where we can do more longer. We can be more longer. We can be more effective longer. We can achieve success longer. And I believe that it can be done with energy and youthfulness. Today, I remind all of us that we are the original Benjamin Buttons. And so this week, I'll meet you on the playground. I'll be over by the swing set. I love you very much. Have a great week. All right, so let's just take a moment and take a deep collective breath. And as we hold hands and we share the same air, we remember that there is only one. One presence, one power, one energy, one essence. There is only one life. It is God's life, and it is my life now. What I know to be true for me, I know to be true for each and every person in this room. The very life of God is their life. And so I just declare right here and right now that it is a good and great day. That today each person changes their thinking and begins to look at life with new eyes, begins to affirm the positive, and begins to see the possibility. I also know that each person in Texas right now and in other parts of the world who are challenged by their conditions, that each feels loved, each feels remembered, each feels the presence of God and their fellow human being. I know that God takes care of each and every one of them. And so I give thanks. I give thanks knowing that each and every person leaves here today with a joyful heart, that each person arrives at their next destination safely, and I just know that each person has their best week yet. So I release my word into the perfect workings of the law. I know that it is done as I have spoken. I let go, I let God, and together we say, and so it is. And now you sing.
Yes, there is peace on earth, and now it begins with me. Yes, there is peace on earth, a peace that was meant to be. With God as our power, love
repeat after me. Something wonderful is happening to me right now.
Something wonderful is happening to me right now.
I know this in my mind.
I know this in my mind.
I feel it in my body.
I feel it in my body.
And so it is.